Hey everyone, welcome to another deep dive. And today we're going to be talking about something I know a lot of you probably grew up with. Drake and Josh.
Drake and Josh, a classic.
Absolutely. Now we're using this incredible deep dive video on YouTube as our guide today. And it goes way deeper than just like reliving the laughs.
Right.
We're talking about their careers after the show,
Mm-hmm.
the infamous wedding drama,
Yeah.
and even some of the darker stuff like the allegations against Drake Bell.
Yeah. There's a lot to unpack there.
So much.
Ugh.
And I have to say, even rewatching some episodes recently, like, it made me wonder, was their falling out kind of inevitable? Like, were there hints of it all along?
It's interesting you say that
Yeah.
because the video actually points out that Drake and Josh came out at a really interesting time for Nickelodeon.
Oh, how so?
Well, they were trying to target a slightly older audience,
Yeah.
bring in more mature themes and humor,
Oh, that makes sense.
which, is a big shift from the Rugrats era of Nickelodeon, right?
Totally. Like, Drake and Josh had high school relationships, even some heavier family stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that shift definitely played a part in the show's lasting appeal.
Right. Like, even today, people in their 20s and 30s still love Drake and Josh.
Totally. But okay, let's talk about the core of the show. Drake and Josh's chemistry.
Oh, man, it was electric.
It really was. And you know what's amazing?
What?
A lot of that iconic shrimp fight scene.
Oh, come on. One of the best scenes
And
ever.
no, so much of that was improv. The script just said, fight over a shrimp, and they went for it.
No way.
Yep, Drake and Josh just riffing off each other, and it's comedy gold.
I love that. And the video even compares them to like classic comedy duos. Like, oh,
Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis.
exactly. Drake being the charming, mischievous one,
Like Dean Martin.
and Josh, the lovable goofball, like Jerry Lewis.
Perfect analogy.
Right. Their personalities played off each other so well.
Absolutely.
But here's where things get interesting. Josh went through a major weight loss during the show, right? Like over 100 pounds.
Yeah, it was a huge transformation.
Which is amazing, don't get me wrong, but it also shows like the pressure young actors face.
Especially in Hollywood,
Right, exactly.
where there's so much emphasis on body image.
And I wonder if the Josh's weight loss, while personally empowering, might like subtly change their dynamic.
Interesting point.
Because they built their whole comedic thing on that contrast, right?
Yeah. The skinny, cool guy and the funny, heavier friend.
Right. So like, could Josh's change have disrupted that balance?
It's definitely possible. I mean, we see it all the time with comedy duos, right?
Yeah,
Where a change in one person kind of throws off the whole dynamic.
totally. And then their careers after Drake and Josh went in like completely different directions.
Right. Drake went full on into music and found a huge following, particularly in Mexico.
Yeah, surprising success there.
And Josh stuck with acting, doing more voice work, and even joining the Vlog Squad.
Oh, right, that YouTube group, right.
Exactly. A very different world from Drake and Josh.
So different.
Yeah.
It's like they were on opposite ends of the entertainment spectrum.
Absolutely. And I think those different ambitions probably played a part in their estrangement.
For sure, for sure. It's like they were growing apart both personally and professionally.
Yeah.
And then, boom, the wedding drama in 2017 hits.
Oh, yeah. The wedding snub heard round the world.
Drake went off on Twitter about not being invited to Josh's wedding.
It was a wild time on social media.
Wild doesn't even cover it.
Mhm.
Like, ties are officially cut. Talk about airing your dirty laundry.
I know, right? It was like a real life soap opera.
Totally. And what's crazy is that this happened years after Drake and Josh ended.
Yeah.
Makes you wonder if there was like all this resentment simmering beneath the surface.
Right. Like the wedding was just the thing that finally made it all explode.
Right. So was it a temporary rift or like a sign of a much deeper break?
That's the big question. And to get to the answer, we got to look at what came next.
Okay, so we've got the backdrop, the chemistry, the diverging paths, and the wedding drama.
We set the stage.
But there's so much more to this story.
Oh, yeah.
Next time, we'll dig into the failed reboot, the allegations against Drake, and Josh's perspective on everything. This is where things get really complicated and a bit heartbreaking.
It's a reminder that what we see on screen is often just a tiny piece of the puzzle.
Definitely. And sometimes the truth behind our favorite shows can be way more difficult to handle.
Exactly. So things take a pretty dark turn after that whole wedding debacle. It's 2020, and Drake's ex-girlfriend, Melissa Lingefelt, she comes forward with some really serious allegations of abuse.
Yeah, this is where it goes from like a public feud to something way more serious. And the video talks about how Melissa used social media, especially TikTok, to share her experiences.
Right, and it wasn't just vague accusations either.
No.
Like, she posted screenshots of alleged conversations
Wow.
and claimed that other women had reached out to her with similar stories.
Oh, wow. So this is like right in the heart of the hashtag #MeToo movement.
Exactly. Social media became this powerful platform for, sharing those kinds of experiences.
Totally.
Uh-huh.
And while Drake denied the accusations, things escalated in 2021 when he was arrested in Ohio.
Yeah, the charges were attempted child endangerment and disseminating matter harmful to juveniles.
Really heavy stuff. And the details are, like, super disturbing.
They are.
The video says the charges were related to an incident at his concert in Cleveland back in 2017, and that the victim had allegedly been in contact with Drake for years.
Yeah, and the most unsettling part is that this alleged contact started when she was only 12.
Oh, man. That's just...
I know, it really casts a dark shadow over everything.
It makes it hard to even think about Drake and Josh the same way.
I know, it's tough.
So Drake ends up pleading guilty to attempted endangering children and disseminating matter harmful to juveniles.
Right.
He gets 2 years probation and 200 hours of community service.
It's a sad turn of events for sure.
It is. And this is where Josh's perspective gets really interesting.
Because he was pretty quiet about Drake for years.
Yeah.
But in his book, Happy People Are Annoying, he finally addresses the allegations.
Oh, wow. And what does he say?
He expresses sadness, obviously.
Yeah.
But also reveals that he and Drake hadn't spoken in years.
No way.
Yeah, like they were basically strangers despite this whole public image of them being best friends.
Wow. So that whole brotherly bond thing was totally a facade.
Pretty much. And to make things even worse, Drake apparently lashed out at Josh on his wedding night.
Seriously?
Yeah, even demanded that Josh apologize to his wife.
Oh, man. What was that about?
It's almost like Drake was trying to hold on to this image of their friendship, even though, as Josh says, it wasn't real anymore.
So messed up. And then, to make things even more confusing, Drake and his wife started a podcast.
Drake and Jam, right?
Yeah. Like they were trying to control the narrative and refute Josh's claims.
It's a classic case of he said, she said.
Totally.
Yeah.
Although it's kind of ironic that their podcast only lasted 1 episode.
Right. Like their story is just destined to be this unfinished thing.
Full of conflicting accounts and unanswered questions.
Exactly. It really shows how hard it is to know the truth about celebrities.
Yeah, especially with social media throwing everything around.
Right. But before we get lost in all the drama, we should talk about that failed reboot.
Oh, yeah. Josh and Drake.
That's the one. It seemed doomed from the start.
Totally.
Yeah.
The video said the whole premise played into some pretty insensitive stereotypes about Mexican culture.
Which is especially weird considering Drake's huge fan base in Mexico.
Right. Like, what were they thinking? And the characterizations were problematic, too.
Yeah, like Josh was going to be the successful real estate agent.
And Drake was the washed-up musician.
Ouch.
Talk about a jab at his actual career.
It's hard not to see it that way, and apparently, according to Drake, Josh wouldn't budge on the script.
So the project died.
Yep.
It's like that reboot became this symbol of their whole falling out.
It really does. Like, it's a microcosm of their relationship and how things have changed since Drake and Josh first aired.
Totally. So we've covered a lot here, from Nickelodeon's evolution to Drake's legal troubles, the failed reboot, and Josh's perspective.
Yeah.
What are some takeaways from all this? What can we learn from Drake and Josh?
Well, I think one of the biggest things is remembering that public image and reality are two very different things.
Right. Like, we saw this best friend image, but the truth was so much more complicated.
It's a good reminder that celebrities are just people.
Yeah, with their own issues and baggage.
Exactly. And we tend to forget that,
Totally. It's easy to get caught up in the fame and forget there's a real person there.
And in this case, that person made some pretty bad choices.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And speaking of choices, their paths after Drake and Josh show how differently they handled things.
Right. Drake kind of clung to that old persona while Josh tried to, redefine himself.
Like they were on totally different wavelengths.
Totally. And it shows in their careers, how they dealt with the controversies, everything.
It's wild how different their journeys became. And, it makes you think about how growing up in the spotlight affected them.
Oh, absolutely. They were kids when they started.
Like their awkward teenage years.
Yeah.
All on camera for everyone to see.
Yeah. It's got to be tough to figure yourself out with that kind of pressure.
Totally. And maybe when the Drake and Josh bubble burst, they just weren't equipped to deal with real life.
It's possible. Like suddenly they're adults having to navigate a whole new world.
And the entertainment industry is not exactly forgiving.
Not at all. So To wrap up this Drake and Josh deep dive,
Yeah.
I think it's a good reminder to not believe everything you see.
Like the picture-perfect image is rarely the whole story.
Exactly. And, their story shows how fame can be fleeting.
It can be a blessing and a curse for sure.
Definitely. And even the strongest friendships can break under pressure.
It's a good reminder for all of us, I think, about the complexities of life and relationships. Well, that was quite a journey. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into Drake and Josh.
Always a pleasure.
It's been a roller coaster of emotions, for sure. But hey, that's the reality behind the screen, sometimes.
Truth.
And on that note, we'll see you guys next time for another deep dive.